So just as with heating types and water sources, the interior of Alaska has a whole bunch of different types of soil as well. And these different soil types have made builders in the interior of Alaska come up with a bunch of different types of foundations to build with. And there's a lot of speculation about which type of foundation is the best, so let's talk about it. So right off the bat, I want to clear something up. There is no one-size-fits-all for foundation types in the interior of Alaska. You may remember in our video, the 5 reasons not to buy a home in Fairbanks. Here's a link to that one. The foundations played a pretty big role in how we disqualify homes. And if you've got a problem with your foundation, then as we're looking at it and as we're showing it to buyers, chances are pretty good we're going to maybe recommend that we go take a look at a different one, unless it's a pretty quick and easy fix. Now, where we live, foundations must be, and I mean must be, determined by the type of soil that the home's going to be built upon. Each one of these foundation types that I'll be talking about here is no different. The consequences of getting this wrong are really, really dire. As a gentle reminder, here's some examples of failing foundations that were either built for the wrong type of soil, or these homes didn't have an effective way to keep water away from them. Either way, they went bad, and they had some really big financial ramifications for the homeowners. We'll touch on how to keep your foundation from failing like those ones a little bit later in the video, and majority of the time is a lot easier than you think. So before we talk about these different foundation types, the most important first step to take is to drill some test holes. And if at all possible, drill as deep as possible and drill as many holes as you can possibly afford. If you can afford to drill 100 feet deep, do it. Get down to as deep as you possibly can. If you're hitting bedrock, that is how deep you need to go. If you're just hitting frozen silt, that's not good. Go deeper. Get through that silt. If you hit ice, go deeper. Get down to as deep as you possibly can. That's what you need to do before you start to make any kind of decisions about your foundation type. And do as many holes as you, like I said, do as many holes as you possibly can, as deep as you possibly can. First on the list is an all-weather wood foundation. And these were really popular in a lot of 90s and early 2000 build homes, and we still see them all the time. I mean, they're everywhere. And they aren't bad. So a lot of people will see an all-weather wood foundation and think, oh no, I can't do this. I can't buy this house. There's nothing wrong with an all-weather wood foundation, as long as they're done right. And that is the kicker. As long as they're done right and they've got some way to keep water away from the base of them. So how are they done? So the first thing that they do more often than not is they will, rip off the overburden or the, whatever ground is covering the building site. And then they'll dig down to a certain depth, however deep they need to go. And it's typically around 4 or 5 feet. If they're getting that low and they're hitting groundwater, then what they'll need to do is backfill with gravel as much as they possibly can until they're not hitting groundwater. Then after that, once it's all backfilled with gravel and compacted, then sometimes they'll install rigid foam kind of insulation around the outside of that wall or outside of that hole. Now, the purpose of that is to make sure that there's no residual heat from inside where that foundation is going to be warming up all of the ground that's around that, because warming up frozen soil around here is just not a good idea. You don't want to have frost heaving soil around the perimeter of your foundation. Not a good thing. From there, they'll typically pour some concrete footings around the base of where they're going to be installing the foundation. With those footings, they're going to be there to more or less make sure that the entire thing stays stable, because what they'll do is they'll, from that point, put down some 2x6s and begin to install the all-weather treated wood, plywood around the perimeter of that whole foundation. And they will use those 2x6s as a way to kind of anchor in those concrete footings. They'll anchor in that wall. Put some visuals of the all-weather wood foundation here. Once they've got the all-weather wood and pressure-treated plywood that is installed on the foundation wall, they'll also install some 2x6 studs along the wall that they'll be able to use as kind of the outside edge of foundation. And that alone typically is strong enough to keep any kind of pressure coming in from the soil from the outside from pushing in. With the footer with those 2x6 stud wall being anchored to that concrete footer, that usually does quite a bit. If you wanted to do a little bit more like some angular bracing, Tim Henry with Arctic Engineering would absolutely be a great person to talk to about that. So if you're worried about your all-weather wood foundation being pushed in from, you know, the lateral pressure of frozen soil in Fairbanks or North Pole, which is something that happens, the first thing that you can do is install some gutters on your property with some downspouts that push any kind of water from either rain or meltwater or breakup. Make sure that that pushes all of the water away from the base of your foundation. And then also, like I said, talk with Tim. He could definitely get you some designs that would definitely be helpful in terms of keeping that lateral pressure from pushing in your foundation wall. Next is the concrete block foundation, and these are pretty popular. A lot of people like a concrete block foundation because, you know, they're pretty strong, and they typically do they start the exact same way. So they'll rip off the forest floor if you're building in a wooded area, or they'll rip off the top part of the dirt there and start to prepare the whole site. They'll dig down as deep as they need to, you know, as far as necessary, and backfill that site or backfill that area with gravel if they happen to hit some groundwater or they don't hit gravel first. And then they'll start to compact that. You know, once they've got that stable concrete footing, then they will start to construct the concrete block wall of your foundation. And these walls are reinforced typically with some rebar in order to give them some strength and keep them from moving around. But still, you know, it's still important to have some proper drainage and make sure that, you know, waterproofing measures are implemented. So, you know, sealing up the outside of those walls with some water shield is still super important. After that, they'll backfill around the edges of your concrete wall foundation, and then they'll put a finished grade around the outside to make sure that any water that does come down from your roof line doesn't slope back towards your foundation. Instead, it instead slopes away from your foundation. And again, having some gutters with some downspouts that come down and brings water or keeps water away from the base of your foundation is super important. Next on our list is the insulated concrete block foundation. And these are super popular. You'll see them all over the place. They're really similar to a concrete block foundation. They prepare the site the exact same. And the big difference is that instead of stacking a concrete block, they'll stack these insulated panels, essentially. They're steel reinforced. So what they'll do is they'll stack these blocks around the base of that same concrete footing that we have with the other foundation types that we've discussed already. So they'll stack these styrofoam insulated blocks on top of each other in a nice line, and they'll create the kind of the outline or the mold of what your foundation is going to look like. And they're really cool to look at. And then once all of the blocks are in place and they're all together and being held together, what they'll do is they'll pour some concrete down inside of the mold, for lack of a better term. And once that concrete sets up, you'll have a super robust and insulated both on the interior and exterior wall foundation. So one of the reasons why these are so popular and these are so great to have up here, and especially in the interior, is the fact that it's insulated on the inside and outside. So any heat that's coming into your crawl space isn't going to be transferred into, you know, the outside perimeter wall of your foundation. So it's highly unlikely that with an insulated concrete block foundation, you're going to be warming up any of the soil on the outside of your foundation wall. Now, with an insulated concrete block foundation, it's still important to make sure that you've got, you know, a finished grade to keep the water from draining back towards your foundation. You also want to make sure that you've got gutters to make sure with downspouts that keep your, you know, meltwater, rainwater away from draining back to your base of your foundation. The last thing that you want to have is for water to pool and gather around the base of your foundation. As it does that, there is no foundation up here that can withstand the horizontal pressure of frozen soil. It will always push it in, whether it's insulated concrete block or concrete block, all-weather wood, it's all going to get pushed in. Next on our list are poured concrete, slab on grade, monolithic slab, you know, foundations. Those are what's next. And these foundation types are certainly done here, but they just have to be done with the right set of circumstances. For these, the building site still needs to be prepared in the exact same way. You know, I would highly recommend, or I would think that most engineers would probably recommend, I'm not an engineer, so I would defer to them for sure, and defer to the builders because they definitely know what they're doing. I've only seen what happens when it looks really, really bad, and also when it looks really good. But from what I can tell, the process looks to be exactly the same. You know, digging down to either gravel and then backfeeding or backfilling with gravel, compacting it, Make sure that you've got a really nice, stable building site and that shouldn't be moving all that much. And then, building once you've got that nice gravel pad, then looking at pouring that big heavy concrete slab with a poured concrete or slab on grade monolithic slab like this. These are the types that you would typically see a radiant floor heating system installed, and they'll typically lay all that heating right before they pour the concrete, and it looks pretty cool when they do it. Thinking about moving to Fairbanks? Well, click on the link below for my free relocation guide where I talk about top schools, top neighborhoods, and so much more. All right, next on our list is an adjustable type foundation, or like a post-on pad foundation is what you'll typically see. And this is another one that a lot of people will see and they'll panic. They'll say, post-on pad foundation? I don't want that. That sounds like it's built on permafrost. Yep, it probably is. And the thing is that if you've got an adjustable type foundation, that is exactly the kind of foundation that you want to have if your home was built on some squishy ground. Having a home built on permafrost, it should absolutely be on a post-on pad foundation. That is the one type of foundation that you need to have if you're going to be building on permafrost. If you know that you're in a swampy area because you've got standing water all over your land and you've got black spruce trees all over your property, skinny little black spruce, they're no more than about 4 or 5 inches in diameter in the trunk, and chances are really good that you're in a super swampy area, and post-on pad foundation is the key to making sure that your home is not going to rip itself apart. So that being said, a post-on pad foundation is absolutely just fine. Now, you can do this the right way, you can do it a wrong way, but doing it in any way different from a post-on pad foundation is the only recipe for disaster. With preparing the site, you want to dig down as deep as you possibly can, and it's going to be tough because if you're building in a swampy area, as deep as every time you swipe with your excavator, if you're the one doing it, chances are pretty good you're going to be eventually bringing up a lot of groundwater, and it's going to get really mucky and gross. But once you're down to groundwater, backfill it with gravel. Then once you start getting a good level of gravel down there, compact it all, and then keep backfilling it with gravel and keep compacting it and do it as much as you possibly can. Bring that gravel above grade as much as you possibly can afford, and that's when you would start to build your post-on pad foundation. And with these pads, all they really are 2 foot by 2 foot concrete pads that are maybe 8 to 10 to a foot deep, and from there the builder's installing posts. Typically a minimum that you want to see is a 4x4 post. That'd be really, really small. Again, I would defer to Tim Henry with Arctic Engineering. He'd be a great person to talk to about the best way to draw up plans for a really good, solid, adjustable post-on pad foundation. Once you've got those posts attached to your pads, you can start to install your floor joists and everything from there. And these are great for building in swampy areas. Highly recommend them. Here's an example of a really, really well done adjustable post-on pad foundation. And if you're thinking of the classic home built on stilts in Alaska, this is the reason for that. So next on our list is and this is kind of our last one too, is the steel pilings foundation. And this one is it's a great alternative to a post-on pad foundation. It can be pretty expensive though. So with this one, what they're doing is they'll start out with the same kind of soil type. It can be a swampy area. You can also do these, you can do these on, a mountainside too. And what they'll do is they'll take these big steel piles and they will just drive them down into bedrock as deep as they possibly can. And what they're relying upon there is essentially pinning the home, because they'll build the frame of the foundation onto the steel frame on a steel piling. So they're relying upon the home to sit steady on these steel pilings that are drilled essentially and pile driven directly into the bedrock. And these are super robust, and it's very atypical to see a steel piling foundation type that has moved at all. I've seen them all over the place, and they are 9 times out of 10, actually shoot, like 9.9999999 times out of 10 immovable objects, and they're really, really good. I really like seeing steel pilings piling foundations. They're really great. You can use them kind of regardless of soil conditions, especially in challenging soil conditions. They're great. They're also super high load bearing too. So if things are going to get rocky or moving, they'll support the home very, very well. When I said rocky, I'm not like seismic activity, things moving and shaking, they should hold pretty well. So highly recommend a steel piling foundation. So if you're seeing these different kind of foundation types, that's a little bit more information about them. Now, of all of the types of foundations that I listed, all of them are financeable. So if you're seeing a different type of foundation, chances are it's probably not going to be financeable. That being said, none of these foundation types are really worth putting any money into if they're installed in the ground that's not really suited for them. Also, despite the amount of money that you might be willing to pour into all these different foundation types, it's kind of pointless if you don't take care of making sure that water is not getting to your foundation. With a steel piling foundation, it can be a little bit irrelevant sometimes because the goal is to pin it directly to the bedrock. But still, you don't want water to be getting down into your, to the steel there either. The two best ways to make sure that you're keeping water away from your foundation are to install gutters with downspouts to keep water away from the base of your foundation, and to have your builder, or to make sure that the home that you buy has a finished grade that slopes away from your foundation. That will keep water from sloping back towards your foundation and pushing in those foundation walls. Definitely don't want that. A recipe for disaster. That being said though, and I kind of mentioned this in the 5 reasons not to buy a home in Fairbanks in that video, and again, there's that link for that. Builders have really only been able to build with the technology of their time and with the data that they've got at the time that data has been collected. So when I mentioned before that, the first step is to always drill as many test holes as possible and as deep as possible, those test holes really only give you a snapshot in time as to what the soil looks like right now. But the problem is that you're not living in your home just right now. You're going to be living in your home for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And even if you're not living in it the entire time, that home is going to be sitting there for that amount of time. And you're not necessarily able to control all of the factors that affect that soil throughout that time. So we have a lot of homes in Fairbanks that were built with the absolute best intentions, with the absolute best data, with the absolute top of the line best foundations of their time, that are now, due to homeowners and buyers and sellers, homes changing hands a whole bunch of times, due to all these different factors, now having a few foundation issues. And we're starting to see it in a bunch of different places. And there are a lot of different ways to take care of these, but the first thing is really identifying that these problems exist at all. So if you're looking at your foundation, maybe you're looking around your home and you're starting to see some settling cracks that maybe you hadn't seen before, give us a call. I'd really like to talk with you about it. My phone number our phone number here at Discover Fairbanks Apex Realty Group is 907-885-0316. There's a lot that we can do about trying to find solutions for these settling cracks and these different issues that might be affecting your foundations. And there are a lot of people that are out here that are willing to help. So if you are starting to get concerned about some changes that you might be seeing to your foundation, like I said, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, hope you subscribe to our channel. Doing so will get you a lot more content just like this. And we'd love to help you out if you are looking to buy or sell a home here in Fairbanks. You can always reach out to us at 907-885-0316. You can also find us at www.fbxhomesearch.com. Have a great rest of your day.